This is the film where I think the MCU really started to take off. What's up guys, my name is Ryan, welcome to my channel if you are new here. So tonight, our journey through the MCU continues with what is a lot of people's favorite film in the MCU, and if it's not their favorite, I believe the general consensus is that it is one of the best films the MCU has to offer, and that is of course Captain America, the Winter Soldier. If you are new here, I'm doing a series where I watch through and review all the films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so that at the end of it, I can do a honest and fair ranking of all 37 films. Now, when it comes to Winter Soldier, I'm not exactly on the train of it's one of the best superhero movies of all time, but I am on the train of that it's probably one of the best MCU films, probably top 10. We'll have to see once I finish this project and do the full ranking. But this is definitely a really good one. I can't wait to rewatch this. Like I said in my previous MCU review for Thor: The Dark World, I was really excited to get to this one because I feel like the quality of the MCU really goes up starting with this film, and the films become consistently like really good or great from here on out, and at least until Phase 4. So I'm gonna watch Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and we'll see if my opinion goes up or down on it. We're gonna see if we can pull any good biblical messages or pictures out of the film. I'll give my thoughts, and so yeah, I'll see y'all after. Alright guys, so I just finished Winter Soldier. I'm just gonna jump right in and get started talking about it, so spoiler alert, and let's get started. Of course, the first thing you have to talk about is Captain America. Once again, Chris Evans gives a phenomenal performance. He is such a great casting choice for the character. Every time I watch Captain America, it's just so refreshing to watch a character like him, because kind of along the lines of like a Ethan Hunt from Mission Impossible or a Marta Cabrera from Knives Out, he's just a really good person who longs to help people, tries his best to prevent pain and suffering, and who just longs to keep people safe, who is humble and selfless, willing to lay his life down on the line. He just wants to do the right thing. He has this kind of innocence about him. He's just a really good person. The rest of the cast here does a phenomenal job as well. Of course, you got Scarlett Johansson as Natasha or Black Widow. Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. Always love seeing him in this role. We are introduced to a great new MCU character in this film, Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie. Also got Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill, Emily Van Camp as Sharon Carter, Sebastian Stan, of course, as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, and Alexander Pierce, played by the amazing Robert Redford. Once again, the MCU knows how to bring together a stellar cast. I love all the old and new characters that are brought into this film. Sam in particularly, who as we've seen has taken up the mantle of Captain America. This was his first MCU film, and it was just nice to, it's been a while since I've seen the film, so it's just nice to see his first introduction into the MCU and see him interact with Cap and start to develop that friendship. I really love to see him help out Cap to moving into the second half of the film when Cap and Black Widow are on the run, and he takes them into his house and joins them and puts on his Falcon gear for the first time. I like the introduction of Sharon Carter, and then I also love the opening scene where Cap and Black Widow are on that ship, and a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents have been taken hostage, it seems, and that Cap faces off against Batroc the Leaper, who is a really kind of silly, obscure character in the comics, but I love seeing him here. Also, we get to see Crossbones, Brock Rumlow, I believe his name is, before he becomes Crossbones. And I love the return of Arnim Zola. Even though it's not his physical self, we do get the digital, like you only see him on a screen version of the character who has, what's the term? He's inserted or uploaded his brain into a computer, and it's like, I think it's called technological regeneration or something like that, and he keeps himself alive, and we get to see him on a screen and talking to Captain America and Black Widow at one point, and I just love that nod to his comic book counterpart where he's like literally a walking, talking screen. I just love when the MCU does stuff like that and does those little nods to the classic comic book stuff. And of course, you have to talk about the action here. This has some of the best action sequences in the MCU, the most standout ones. Of course, the one everyone talks about is the elevator fight scene, which is a great scene. But I think every fight scene is so well done. It's so cool to watch. The moves and the choreography is really well done. It's very visually pleasing. I love that scene where Cap visits old Peggy in that nursing home, I think it was, or wherever it was. But I love when he visits Peggy, who it's really interesting because he's someone who is kind of like time traveled, and he's still the same age as he was when he put the ship in the ice back in 1945, but she's, like, all his friends are either dead or super old now, and so seeing him interact with Peggy, and her being in a stage of life where her brain is starting to go, we see her kind of talking to Steve. The scene starts out with her knowing who he is, remembering who he is, but then she kind of slips back and, like, her eyes get really wide, and she's like, acts like this is the first time she's seeing Steve, and it's revealed to her that he's alive for the first time, even though she was just talking to him like she knew that already just a second ago. It's really sad to see, but it's such an interesting scene because it shows kind of the situation Captain America's in is just so interesting because he comes from a different place in time. The world has changed a lot in 70 years, and I'll touch more on that in a second. I just like that little scene, how it fits into what Captain America's going through and just seeing the effects of his kind of time travel. Although in light of seeing the completion of the Infinity Saga and Captain America's arc, this is just a minor thing, but it's kind of, we see him watch an old video of Peggy shortly after Captain America dies in 1945, and she talks in that video of how, like, Steve saved her husband. But of course we see in Endgame that Cap goes back in time and lives his life with Peggy and was married to her, and so it's kind of unclear whether Steve was that husband she was talking about, and she was trying to keep it vague because Steve is trying to preserve the timeline and not affect things. I don't know, it's just a bit confusing in light of Endgame, and because we see that that Steve does get that life with Peggy, but now it's like, okay, so are there currently two Steves in the present day MCU? The old man who we see at the end of Avengers Endgame, and the one who's from 1945 who has yet to go back and live that life with Peggy? I tried to look this up and get some clarification on it. I've done this multiple times, but, like, I get different answers from different people who've worked on the MCU. Like, I think the Russo brothers say one thing, and then the writers of the film actually say another, and then you have the people from Loki saying some different stuff, so it's just a bit confusing as to, like, did she have a different husband, and then Steve went back in time and became a different husband, or it's just, the time travel logic is just kind of unclear. I really hope they clear that up one day in the MCU. I don't know if they ever will, but I think if they do, their last opportunity will be in Doomsday, because Loki's going to be in it, and he's kind of like watching over all the timelines, and so I think we could get a nice little scene of, like, some of the old Avengers who knew Steve talking to Loki and saying, oh yeah, he lived out a nice life with Peggy, and there were those two Steves in the modern day MCU in the Infinity Saga. I would absolutely love if we got a scene like that in Doomsday or Secret Wars, just kind of clearing that up. This is also the first MCU film the Russo brothers direct, Joe and Anthony Russo. I believe Joe Russo actually cameos as a doctor, Nick Fury's doctor, in the, I think, third act of the film when Captain America and Black Widow find out that Nick Fury's actually alive, and Maria Hill takes him to that, like, bunker that he's staying in. But they are hands down, I think, the best MCU directors. All four of their films, I think they just have the right balance of everything, and they just incorporate all the great things about the MCU, and they just do it best. I think all four of their films get, like, the best, most standout action sequences in the MCU. All four of their films have, like, a perfect pacing. This film and their other films never feel like it's, like, in a rush, or like it's moving too fast or too slow. And they have, like, that perfect balance of lightheartedness and fun and the levity, but also the seriousness and the weight to what's going on. They just do all of that and balance it all so incredibly well, and they make it look so seamless and easy. The story and everything in all of their films, everything just flows really well and, like, leads into the next thing, like, so seamlessly and smoothly. Another thing I love about this film is just how it continues what's already been set up in the MCU up to this point, and also like just builds on that and continues that, and also sets up some stuff to come in the MCU. There's so many lines and stuff in this film that we see development on later, and we see it brought to its conclusion, of course, in Infinity War and Endgame, and the continuation of that from this film to Civil War, and how it all just leads into the future of the MCU. The setup in this film is just amazing. Especially the opening, like the first scene we see, like Sam Wilson running, and then Captain America or Steve like running past him saying, "On your left." Of course we know that that line just comes back around in Endgame, and when Sam ends up saying it to Cap in that final battle, before that final battle begins and everyone starts coming out of the portals, it's just like, when he said that, you knew, oh snap, this is gonna be awesome. This is just such an important film in the MCU, and it's not a drag to get through, kind of like Thor the Dark World is. Like I said, it's got that balance between the seriousness and you feel the weight of the situation and what's going on, but it's also got the fun and the levity to it. It's very fun to watch and to get through. There's never a time where you want to look at your watch, never really a dull or boring moment. Even when the characters are just talking, it's still interesting to watch and just love seeing them interact. There's never a point where you look at your watch and like, okay, how much longer on this? No, you're fully invested in the story the entire time, and it just like flies by like that. Another thing the Russo brothers do really well with their movies is the movies just fly by, and they just make it look so easy to make such a great big blockbuster film. Their track record with superhero, with MCU films is phenomenal. I am so looking forward to seeing what they do with Doomsday and Secret Wars. I am confident they will do a great job directing. The only thing I'm nervous about is kind of like, with the issues the MCU has had in the past, I don't think they've done a great build-up into Doomsday and Secret Wars, but I am confident that the Russo brothers can still make those great films and can do a great job with what they have. But now let's move into what I love probably most about this film, and some good messaging I feel we can pull out of the film. The thing I probably love most about this film is just Cap and how rooted and grounded he is and firm in what he believes, and how like when he discovers that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by Hydra, and that he gets into the situation where he doesn't really know if he can trust anyone for a little while there, and it just seems like a world is coming crashing down around him. He's already in this place where he's trying to adjust to the modern world, and seeing how different it is from back in 1945, and how the world has changed a lot. I love that conversation he has with Fury in the beginning, and just kind of seeing the contrast between the two of them, and how like after they come back from the mission on the boat, and Cap walks into Fury's office, he's like, "You didn't tell me that you gave like Natasha a different mission from me. How am I supposed to lead when I don't know what everyone's goal and mission is?" He's working for someone who's not giving him all the details, and who's kind of doing his own thing. Fury doesn't work like how Cap is used to people and institutions working. Fury is someone who is very distrustful of people. He doesn't trust anyone very easily. And I just love seeing the back and forth between Cap and Fury in the beginning. And I understand where Fury's coming from, although he does seem to have kind of more a cynical and negative outlook on life and the world compared to Captain America, but I understand where he's coming from, and he's not necessarily wrong, I don't think. I think maybe in this film he just starts to take that a bit too far with Project Insight. I think Nick Fury is someone who understands the sinful human nature of people and how terrible people can be, and he gives off the impression, he kind of feels like this character who's been through a lot of like betrayal, and who's seen a lot of like seemingly good people turn bad, and who's seen a lot of evil, and just has developed this negative outlook on life. I love when he's talking about Project Insight and how they can kind of predict people's actions before they do them, and how he's talking about how we can neutralize a lot of threats before they even happen. And then Cap says, "I thought the punishment came after the crime," and then Fury says, "We can't afford to wait that long." And then I love when Fury says, "S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world as it is, not as how we would like it to be." Now, I don't agree with what Fury's doing with Project Insight and trying to predict threats that might not happen, and try and like incarcerate and neutralize threats before they even start, and treating people as guilty when they haven't even done anything yet. But I do love how Fury recognizes that the world is a terrible place, and he has more of a negative outlook on life, and he realizes that people are not good. And as much as we all would love the people to be inherently good and to, trust that people will do the right thing and that most people are good, like Fury said, S.H.I.E.L.D. takes the world as it is, and they recognize the evil fallen state of the world and how there's so many threats out there and people are selfish and evil. There's this similarity between him and Captain America in that they both just want to protect the world and just don't want even the slightest chance of evil and suffering occurring and want to stop it before it even starts. But you can't always do that. You can't punish someone for a crime they have not committed, even if, this algorithm is predicting that they will. They haven't done it yet, so you can't punish them for that. I just love how that scene shows kind of like the difference, but also the similarities between Fury and Cap. And then when Cap figures out and learns that Hydra has been like this parasite in S.H.I.E.L.D. for years and kind of been building their way back up and building the organization again, and how it's kind of infiltrated and taken over S.H.I.E.L.D. and how it's trying to use Project Insight and neutralize a bunch of potential threats using Arnim Zola's algorithm. I love how it kind of seems like Captain America's world is crashing down around him. Nick Fury is supposedly dead when he finds out that Hydra's kind of taken over and he's just escaped. He's a fugitive from S.H.I.E.L.D. now. He's not sure he can trust people. Even when he starts working with Black Widow, he's not entirely sure he can trust her in the beginning. And this is what I love. Cap doesn't ever seem to be very fazed by what he goes through, even though he's like out of his element. He's in this new time and place. Times are very different. And this organization that he thought was good, that he's been working for, is actually this evil organization has penetrated it and kind of taken over, and he seems alone in the world, but he doesn't let that faze him. He keeps up his kind of cheery disposition. He never really loses his cool or breaks down and screams at any moment. He just keeps that cheery disposition. He keeps going, keeps fighting, keeps trying to come up with a plan of what to do next and how to help people and how to fix things and take down Hydra. I just love how Cap is so firm in what he believes, and he's trying to figure out the next right thing to do, and he never loses his cool or gets super angry. Of course, he gets angry. We see him punch the one TV screen with Arnim Zola on it, but he just keeps going and keeps fighting. He never really lets the circumstances get to him and make him give up or feel discouraged. He just keeps up that cheery disposition and that good heart and keeps going and keeps fighting, and that's what I love about Captain America. I love that moment when they escape the bunker where Arnim Zola was talking to them, and they go to Sam Wilson's house, and he takes them in, and Black Widow says to Cap when they get a moment to sit down, "Well, you're looking chipper," and you just see the smile on Captain America's face. He's like, "I guess I just like to know who we're fighting." I just love how Captain America still manages to have a smile on his face and to just keep his cool, and he just doesn't seem discouraged or down at all. He's confident he can still set things right. And it reminded me of how we as Christians, as the world grows increasingly more dark and evil, and sometimes we can get into circumstances where we feel like we are alone, or like right and wrong isn't so clear. We are supposed to remain steadfast and rooted and grounded in the faith and keep our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter and finisher of our faith, and stay in our word and remind ourselves what is right and what is wrong, and keep the end goal in mind, that Jesus is coming back, that heaven's is on the way, how we're not supposed to let the world get to us, and how we're supposed to remain joyful despite the circumstances and the trials we face, and not to let the darkness and the evil of the world get to us and make us think all hope is lost. We're supposed to keep going, keep running the race that is set before us, keep fighting, keep trying to lead people and point them to Christ. It reminded me of this verse in Colossians 1. We're going to look at Colossians 1 verses 21 through 23. Alright, it says, "And you who once were alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now he has reconciled, he being God, in the body of his flesh through death, to present you holy and blameless and above reproach in his sight." And this is the verse it reminded me of. If indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the hope of the gospel which you heard, which was preached to every creature under heaven, of which I, Paul, became a minister. We are supposed to remain rooted and grounded and steadfast in the faith no matter what comes. We are supposed to keep going, keep serving Christ until he calls us home or until he comes back. I'll be honest, sometimes it does seem like, what's the point? Like, it's getting harder every day to reach people for Christ and get them to see and understand how much he loves them and that he is like a good person. I know a lot of people see God as like kind of angry and evil, but he's good, he is perfect, he's kind, he loves us. Sometimes you can get to hearing a lot of bad news and it can kind of like get you down or make you feel like, what's the point? Like, is there any hope left? Like, is there any goodness left in the world? But we are supposed to keep fighting, keep believing, keep walking by faith and not by sight, even though it looks like the world is all going downhill. Like Captain America, we're supposed to we're supposed to be joyful and bear the fruits of the Spirit, keep trying to be good reflections of Christ, keep trying to change the world for Christ, and just, that's what this film and Captain America in this film reminds me of. I just love how he doesn't really let anything get to him or get him down. He just keeps going, keeps fighting, keeps that cheery disposition. He's still looking chipper even after everything seems to be crashing down around him. And of course, we have to talk about the relationship between Cap and Bucky and the moment when he realizes, when he takes off the Winter Soldier's mask and he sees Bucky's face, and Bucky starts to remember Steve, and he's like, I knew him. When they try to brainwash him again. I love when Sam kind of talks to Cap about how your friend probably isn't the same guy you knew. But Cap's gonna keep fighting for his friend, keep trying to get him back to normal, get him to remember and see the light. I love that final battle when he's trying to jog his memory and say, I'm your friend, you are James Buchanan Barnes. I love when Bucky's just pummeling Steve and he's getting all beat up and he's like, but he says what we see in a flashback Bucky said to him, I think after Steve's mom died, and Cap just repeats what Bucky said, and he says, I'm with you till the end of the line. And then he stops pummeling him and then just lets him fall down into the water as the ship is crashing, then kind of saves him and pulls him out of the water, and then just disappears right after that. And then at the end, the final scene when Cap gets that file from Natasha about the Winter Soldier, and Sam's like, you're gonna go after him, aren't you? I just love how Cap doesn't give up on Bucky and knows that his friend is still in there and is like trying to fight for him and get him back, and we'll see that continue as we continue through the MCU and into Civil War. Captain America is just such a great guy, just an easy character to root for, such a fun, good character to watch. And then I also love the post-credits scene where Bucky is in that museum and he looks at that mural and that part of the museum dedicated to himself, and he starts to remember who he is. And then the other post-credits scene where we see Baron von Strucker, and we get to see the Maximoff twins, that's their name, Quicksilver and Wanda, who we'll get to see in Avengers Age of Ultron. I just loved that post-credits scene and setting that up and setting those two characters up for the future of the MCU. Overall, I think that's all my thoughts on Captain America the Winter Soldier. I think I'd give this like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Really no negatives, but it just doesn't get a 10 out of 10 for me because it's just, I don't think it does anything like phenomenal, like, oh wow, that was like amazing. Nothing phenomenal or super heartfelt or that like really emotionally resonated with me. I do understand why this is so many people's favorite film in the MCU and why it's a lot of people's top 5 or top 10. I'll have to see where it lands in my MCU ranking, but it definitely is a really good film. But thank y'all for watching my review for this film. Like and subscribe, and let me know what you think of Captain America the Winter Soldier down below. Would love to have a conversation with y'all about this film. I appreciate y'all watching and subscribing and commenting and helping me put more godly Christian content out there in the world. So yeah, just subscribe right over here. And then if you want to watch some more MCU content from me, right here is my previous MCU review for Thor: The Dark World. And then right here is a playlist of all my MCU videos. Hopefully you'll find another MCU related video in there to watch and enjoy. And with that, I will see y'all in the next video. Y'all have a great morning, afternoon, evening, night, midnight, whatever time it is when you're watching this video. And I'll see y'all next time, guys. Y'all have a blessed one.